The human brain still holds countless mysteries. Over the past 100 years, science has clarified many things, yet much remains unknown. In the past, there were numerous plausible but incorrect theories about the human mind, and even more strange and absurd ones. Let's explore some of the most curious misconceptions about psychology. In the mid-20th century, audio recordings emerged in the US and other Western countries, claiming to help people learn new skills effortlessly, specifically during sleep. The idea was simple: play a tape while sleeping and absorb the content passively. Learning a language or mastering a subject without any effort sounded tempting. Entrepreneurs quickly took advantage of this desire for shortcuts. By the 1950s, they were selling sleep learning audio courses on languages, math, economics, and even self-improvement. Some recordings promised to help people quit smoking, avoid junk food, or eliminate bad habits. Special headphones were marketed as enhancing information absorption if used with these recordings. Celebrities of the era appeared in ads promoting the supposed life-changing benefits. Even scientists were cited to back these products, claiming they worked wonders. However, as interest in sleep learning grew, real scientists started investigating. They found that people couldn't retain new information while asleep. The method was ineffective and amounted to nothing more than wasted time and money. Though the brain is active during sleep, processing and storing memories, it cannot absorb entirely new knowledge. Yet researchers discovered that cues like smells or sounds from the learning process, when repeated during sleep, can enhance memory consolidation. In one study, participants learned object placements on a grid while a rose scent was in the room. When that same scent was introduced during sleep, they recalled the information more accurately the next day. Sounds had a similar effect. Despite science debunking sleep learning, YouTube still hosts hours-long videos claiming to teach languages or skills during sleep. The appeal of easy fixes remains strong even in the face of scientific evidence. In recent years, there's been a sharp rise in people in Russia seeking psychological help. While troubling, it also shows that people are increasingly willing to reach out to professionals during mental health crises such as depression. Just 10 to 15 years ago, few in the post-Soviet space turned to psychologists, believing therapy was only for the severely ill. Thankfully, that perception is changing. Many now see therapy as a helpful tool, even for issues like procrastination or low motivation. Now, let's turn to a chilling chapter in psychiatric history: lobotomy. In the early 20th century, treatments for mental illness were often cruel and ineffective. Patients were locked in asylums, restrained for long periods, and subjected to painful procedures like ice baths or electroshock therapy. In 1935, Portuguese neurologist Egas Moniz proposed cutting the connections between parts of the brain to reduce the influence of emotional centers. His goal was to create calmer, more manageable patients. The operation, removing or severing brain tissue, left many people emotionally flat and passive. Yet Moniz viewed this as a success, believing the patient's compliance indicated improvement. Proper long-term follow-up was lacking. Conclusions were drawn from immediate behavior changes, not long-term outcomes. Nevertheless, Moniz promoted his method, and others followed. American physician Walter Freeman became the most devoted advocate. His peak influence came in the 1950s. Freeman believed lobotomy could prevent mental illness and even performed it on healthy individuals as a preventive measure. He developed a simplified version using an ice pick-like tool inserted through the eye socket. By moving it around, he would sever brain connections. The entire process took about 15 to 20 minutes and didn't require drilling the skull. Freeman conducted public demonstrations of his procedure, even performing 2 lobotomies at once using both hands. He traveled the U.S. in a van he called the lobotomobile, offering the procedure in small towns. But many patients suffered severe consequences. Some became completely incapacitated, unable to walk, talk, or care for themselves. Others died on the operating table due to complications like brain hemorrhages. Perhaps the most famous case was Rosemary Kennedy, sister of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Her father, ashamed of her developmental delays, arranged a lobotomy when she was 23. The result was devastating. She lost her ability to speak and walk, regressing to the mental state of a toddler. She was institutionalized, largely abandoned by her family, and only years later began to regain basic functions. It wasn't until her father died that the family reconnected with her. Freeman ultimately performed over 2,500 lobotomies. His practices faced growing criticism, and by the late 1960s, he was banned from conducting surgeries. His last patient died during the procedure in 1967. Freeman himself died in 1972, having spent his final years criticizing psychiatric medications and defending lobotomy. In the Soviet Union, lobotomy was banned in 1950 after trials on a few hundred patients. Now consider handwriting. Some believe it reveals personality traits, a theory known as graphology. However, science classifies it as a pseudoscience. Graphologists analyze letter size, pressure, spacing, and other features to draw conclusions about a person's character. Though it may sound compelling, studies have shown graphology is highly subjective and unreliable. It should not be confused with forensic handwriting analysis, which is a legitimate method used to verify document authenticity and signatures in criminal investigations. Despite its scientific rejection, graphology is still used in hiring decisions in countries like France and Israel. In Japan, companies sometimes make decisions based on a person's blood type, a practice equally questionable. Take a look at a prison cell painted entirely pink. This was once believed to calm aggressive inmates. In the 1960s, an American psychologist studied color psychology and found that a specific shade of pink could slow heart rates and reduce physical strength. Some U.S. prisons painted walls and bars pink, hoping to control inmate behavior. The calming effect, however, lasted only 15 to 20 minutes. In some cases, prolonged exposure even increased agitation. Still, some U.S. jails maintain these pastel cells. On Hawaii, a football stadium painted the visiting team's locker room pink in hopes of weakening their performance. This tactic led to a rule requiring all locker rooms to be painted the same color. In older American films, you might recall psychologists showing patients ink blot cards and asking what they see. The Rorschach test, developed in the 1920s by Swiss psychiatrist Hermann Rorschach, aimed to explore how people interpret ambiguous shapes. It was once widely used to assess mental health, but modern research suggests psychologists only derive meaningful insights from the test when they already know a great deal about the patient. Still, it remains a useful conversation starter in therapy, helping to establish trust and open communication. For centuries, the diagnosis of hysteria was applied almost exclusively to women exhibiting a wide range of symptoms: fainting, insomnia, convulsions, memory loss, and more. In antiquity, it was believed that hysteria was caused by a wandering uterus. Treatments included placing pleasant-smelling oils near the genitals to lure the uterus back into place, or using foul-smelling substances to repel it from the upper body. In the Middle Ages, hysteria was seen as a punishment for sin, particularly lust. Women were thought to be gateways for demons. Exorcism became the treatment, holy water, prayers, and rituals to cast out evil spirits. In Russia, a similar condition called klikuchestvo was believed to involve demonic possession during seizures. Women were interrogated, and whoever they named during fits might be accused of sorcery. Peter the Great tried to stamp out this belief, seeing it as dangerous and manipulative. By the 19th century, attitudes shifted again. Puritan norms made sex a taboo subject, yet doctors believed the absence of sexual activity caused hysteria. The prescribed treatment? More sex, ideally with a husband. When that failed, physicians began manually stimulating patients with special tools, early versions of modern vibrators. These treatments were framed as purely medical, inducing paroxysmal convulsions, not orgasms. Eventually, the electric vibrator became one of the first electrical appliances invented for medical use. Doctors sought relief from the fatigue of manual stimulation. By the early 20th century, the diagnosis of hysteria faded, replaced by more accurate conditions like depression or schizophrenia. Vibrators also disappeared from the medical market until reappearing during the sexual revolution in the late 1960s. Thanks for watching this video until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope to see you again soon.